Okay, so let's try one more review of Bethpage Black. I've done several reviews of this, and each time it keeps getting a little bit more coherent. I think one of the problems I had when I last played the course is I got really hot, I got really tired. It was a long drive up there from DC to New York to play it, and I had to pay $135 to play the course because I was out of state, and you can't ride on the course. It's a walking only course. I think I may have gotten a little too hot, a little too frustrated, a little too annoyed with all the greenskeepers. Certainly on number 4 when I played the last time, the greenskeepers were just obnoxious on number 4 and number 5, just hovering. And it wasn't like one greenskeeper, there was like 5 or 6 of them just hovering around the greens and the sand traps and the tee box. They like lined up behind us watching us hit off the tees for number 5. So, and that was on a Friday, and it certainly was annoying. But I think I may have overreacted a little bit, considering some of this was given. You know, you have to go to the course. It's a walking course and so forth. But the greenskeepers were definitely obnoxious, especially considering that was a Friday morning. But in general, Bethpage is a tricky course to get on. The course is one of the 5 courses there, and Bethpage Black is I would say under fairly high demand. It's not the only course there, obviously, that people like to play. So it's not like everybody's there trying to get on the black, but there's still not, it's not easy to get on the course. You have to get there early enough. They take reservations for the last year when I played there the first time. They didn't take reservations, but lately they've put on a online tee time booking system. So it's got tee times that are going to be taken when you get there, unless you book early, book it online. And if you get there in the morning, a lot of times during the year, if the weather's anywhere near reasonable, and I mean 40 or above, you'll find that the course is packed and all the tee times are sold by about 10 o'clock in the morning. The first couple of times I got there and played it with 10 years ago, roughly, it used to be that the parking lot would fill up by about 6 o'clock in the morning, and then they'd have to issue numbers so you could, come back at 8 when they opened and get your tee time. Now I don't think it's quite that busy, and the last time I went up there, I got there at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I was able to get a tee time at 9:30 and walk out on there. But that was Friday, as I said, not Saturday, not Sunday. I wouldn't really push my luck in terms of getting on this course if you really want to play it. Now, about the course itself, ignoring the greenskeepers, okay, for a while. Let's just ignore them. The course has some verticality. You will hit some shots over some valleys. There's some up and down and some elevated greens. But mainly it's sort of an open kind of woods course, somewhat of a parks kind of course. And as you'll see in the photos, what you generally have is a fairly narrow fairway. At least it looks narrow considering the width between the trees. And it generally does give you a fair amount of width between trees. At least 150, maybe 200 yards between the trees, or the adjacent fairway, if in certain cases. But most of that is going to be waste or a fair amount of rough, what I would call the first or second cut of rough, or sand traps, okay? Most of that space you don't want to hit in. And this is the tricky part of this course. It really rewards people who can drive to the fairway and hit to the green. It doesn't give you a lot of blockage. Like some courses will give you a lot of trees that you have to hit around. It doesn't give you a lot of carries, where some courses will give you long carries that you have to hit over. It generally relies on you hitting a shot that has to be 10% off at most. to be in the fairway, or else you're playing out of that rough and it's significant rough, or else you're going to go into waste and you're probably not going to find it in that waste, or you're going into the bunkers, and the bunkers are numerous in this course. They're somewhat deep. They're not the deepest bunkers by far that I've seen. Virginia Oaks, for example, the bunkers of Virginia Oaks were much deeper than the bunkers here. They're moderately deep bunkers. Even on the notorious 18th hole, they're not that deep. You can play up out of them fairly easy, and it's really just a question of, you know, not letting the course get to you, considering that it does hit you with this test hole after hole after hole after hole. Yes, there's a fairway, but it's not much, and if you miss it, you're gonna lose strokes. It's just a question of how many strokes and how badly you try to fight the course instead of just, you know, playing within your game and staying on the fairway. So I think the course overall isn't that interesting because it is handicapped by that pattern. The major problem is there really aren't any trees that you have to play around except on a couple of the holes. There's a dogleg on the front side, I think, the number 8 or number 9, and then there's the tree next to the par 3, which I think is number 5, the downhill par 3. That's pretty much it. The real weakness is it takes away a major factor that you see on golf courses, is that you have to play around trees or play through trees or something. That doesn't happen on this course. It doesn't. Well, okay, maybe the numbers, I guess it's the number 17 or something like that. Also, you'll see a tee shot. There's an elevated tee, and it kind of bends around to the left and goes back to the right to the green. That tree that sits out in the fairway to the left is in play, and if you're not lucky and not careful, you can end up on the inside of that turn under that tree trying to play back to that green, and you know that's certainly going to take a couple of strokes out of there right there. But okay, the first hole, dogleg right. Obviously there's a cluster of trees to the right, but I've hit over under those trees, and for me it was a 7-iron over the trees to the green. Not a big deal. I didn't have any problem getting over those trees. So I still think that on a lot of woods courses, it's a much tighter course, and the trees are much more of a factor than they are here. Here, the trees are almost a non-issue. The only real issue is the waste, the rough, and the sand traps. And that's significant, but it's only so much. So I think this course is a reasonably easy course to play as long as you can hit fairly consistent shots. You're not spraying drives. You're not, you know, slicing irons or duffing irons left and right. You certainly don't want to duff on this course because it'll just double the shot that you're taking. You know, you're trying to hit these long shots and and duffing the shots. It's a bad thing. Get the distance, okay? Stay out of trouble. You'll have a fairly easy time. You really don't want to duff shots. You really don't want to spin shots here. It will add forever to the round, and that's where I think the secret is to this course. Other than that, it's hot, you know, most of the time. Even if you start off in the morning and it's 40 degrees like in April or May, by 10, 11 it'll be hot. You're walking this course. It's a fair amount of work. I don't know how many people walk courses on a regular basis. I stopped walking courses, you know, a while ago, years ago. So this was the first time I'd walked a course in years. And then you throw the greenskeepers in on number 4, which ruined a really good hole for me. It was a nice hole, probably the hardest hole and the most interesting hole in the course, and it was just corroded with greenskeepers. That kind of annoyed me for a few holes, but in general, I played it pretty well. I had a fairly good time, and I really shouldn't complain. It was a good round for me for the most part, and it has a nice patio, and the beer's nice, and the waitresses are very nice, and overall I had a fairly good time. I just wouldn't pay $135 to play that course again by choice, but otherwise I'd say it was a decent course, a B course. That's Bethpage Black in New York.